Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Round Robin. I am your host, Tracy Preston, along with Christine Mulligan, Nina Mulligan, Regina Lindsay, and my husband, Todd Preston. Hey, everyone.
Hi. Hi. Hello.
Hey, good people.
So in today's episode, we are going to be talking about cults. So I found an article from the University of Texas called The Psychology of Cults because it's interesting to me and I think to everybody on this call. So we're going to start off with, well, what is a cult, right? So a cult can be a religious or quasi-religious group characterized by unusual or atypical beliefs, seclusion from the outside world, and an authoritarian structure. Cults tend to be highly cohesive, well-organized, secretive, and hostile to non-members. So some of the common traits are that they're usually led by a charismatic individual whom the members worship without question. Cult members often live together in their own dedicated community. The psychology of cults and how they lure people in and take control. So cults recruit new members anywhere you might expect to meet new people, such as social media, discussion groups, community clubs, and events. They are typically non-threatening, public situations that would not cause anyone to be suspicious. Cult recruiters get to know as much as they can about people and identify individuals who may be receptive to meeting a group of the recruiter's friends at dinner or another social event. Though the chosen targets are generally unaware, these seemingly innocent gestures are the first steps to being drawn into a cult. So they tend to target vulnerable prey. Receptive people are those who are looking to escape something, such as an unhappy life situation, and to belong, to be accepted, to find meaning. Cults prey among the vulnerable among us, such as teenage runaways, drug addicts, abuse survivors, and those who have lost someone close to them through death or a breakup, those suffering from insecurity or mental health issues, or anyone who feels disconnected from society. Once a potential recruit is in the presence of a cult member, typically still oblivious to the group's agenda, they are showered with love and validation. This tactic is referred to as love bombing, which makes the recruit believe that they have found what they are looking for and more likely to return for group activities in the future. And this is critical in the early stages of cult indoctrination, since the recruit is not yet under their influence and needs to feel secure. As they indoctrinate new members, many cults separate them from their families, friends, and jobs, slowly remaking their identities to suit the group. They may force recruits to surrender their money, belongings, and bodies to the cult's leaders and other members. Sometimes they compel new members to marry people they just met. They may use punishment, deprivation, and other tactics to wear them down. These efforts, which sometimes include threats, make new members dependent on and afraid to leave the group. Fully indoctrinated members often engage in behavior they never would have considered in their former lives. So I'm going to just kind of list off a handful of some notorious cults, and then we're going to kick it out to the group. So the Manson family, that one's pretty well known. The Sylvanians, this was a love cult back in the Upper West Side of Manhattan in the 1950s. The People's Temple, Heaven's Gate, Nexium, and Good News. That's another one I hadn't heard of before, but that's the Kenya-based International Church. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of that, but the Sylvanians, Nexium, I've heard of that, and Good News. Those two are ones that aren't very familiar to me. Has anybody heard of those?
I heard of the Sylvanians. Just, I think I mentioned this on the last round, Robin, is that I watched a lot of documentaries on cults because I've just always been fascinated about the ways in which cult leaders manage to get otherwise seemingly normal, intelligent, rational people to join them and to follow them give up all of their worldly belongings. It's just fascinating to me, the psychology of it all.
Agreed.
I agree too. And I am always watching the documentaries when they come out, when they're about cults, because my fascination goes way back to the Nike sneakers, like the Halley's Comet cult. I don't remember
right?
what the name was.
I know which one you're talking about.
I think I must have been at a young, impressionable age where that was hella interesting to me, even as a little kid. Like, I was like, wait, what? He told you he wanted to do that because you were going to just vaporize up into the comet? Like, I'm not really sure exactly what they were expecting. I know it was something about, like, they were all going to drink fruit punch, like, literally drink the punch, the Kool-Aid, and then they were going to fall asleep and end up on the comet. Like, it's roughly that was the idea. And they all believed it. And I was like, wait, what? That was like my version at that age was, what is it? Close your eyes and open your mouth. I got a surprise for you. And then your older brother would like stuff something nasty in your mouth. Like, that was the rationalization. I was like, well, duh. A 5-year-old knows better than that.
But they don't, though, at that point. And, that was actually pretty much how Jonestown went down. And, that's where the term drink the Kool-Aid came from, is the members of the Jonestown cult committing mass suicide and or murdering their families in Guyana because they had to flee the United States.
Yeah, I find them hella interesting. However, because I'm the fruitcake of the bunch and my brain is always going a million different ways and a million different paths, aren't we all capable of slip sliding into a cult? I mean, anything that you get too fanatical about or anything that you believe in wholeheartedly, beliefs, are made up by each individual. The whole concept of beliefs is an individual thing, and whatever you focus on is what you're going to get. So, I mean, even being like in the fictitious, of course, I'm going to say this just to demonstrate the spectrum of being in a cult. When you're in mommy mode and your kids are young, you're kind of in like a mommy cult because you all do the same thing. You all have, play dates. There's a little competition among the moms that always happens unconsciously. You know what I mean? There's a hierarchy. It's a whole thing. Like, of course, that being one side of the spectrum, and then the Halley's Comet people being the other, the opposite side of the spectrum. I think it's a slippery slope. I think cult is kind of pejorative. When we label certain people as being in a cult, we start to give license to abuse them.
I totally agree with that. And from personal experience, so I'm just going to share this. It's not exactly a cult experience, but I can see sort of how it could happen. So I converted, became Catholic when I got married to my daughter's father. And not too long after we got divorced, he became very active in the church, and he asked me, offered me to go on this retreat with the church, and it's called an Acts retreat, after Acts of the Apostles, right? It's like a 4-day weekend. You leave Thursday night, they take you out to this really beautiful ranch, and you stay in a cabin with a group of other women. It's segregated, so they have women's retreat one weekend and a men's retreat a different weekend. So the first thing that happens when you get there is when you get off the bus, you're tired, it's been a long day, and everybody's lined up as you're going into this community room at this camp, and they're singing. And I'm not even joking. My first thought was, oh, shit, he just legit sold me down the river with a cult. Like, this is not my scene.
Right.
And so they usher us all into this large room, and they kind of, welcome everybody, and they explain to us basically how things are going to go down. So they take everyone's watch and they take everyone's cell phone. There are no clocks anywhere on this grounds of this facility that are plugged in. The people there get you from one task to the next, letting you know when it's time to do something different by ringing a bell. These are the people who are, they call it teaming, the people that have organized this retreat. And then they proceed to tell us that, okay, we're going to go to, we're going to go pray the rosary every morning. We're going to go to chapel, which is fine. It's pretty typical stuff, but we are going to be in silence until in the morning after chapel. So once you leave that room, you're not allowed to speak until the following morning. You know, we have our little meetings in the morning and pray the rosary, all this, and then go and we sit in a large room. We're broken up into groups, but we're all in a big room. So they have different topics that we discuss, and some of them are biblical and some of them are about, you know, sins and this or that. I kid you not, guys, it was like being on a 4-day long episode of Oprah. I mean, it was insane how emotional this whole thing was, like the emotional ups and downs and different activities that they do that are supposed to open you up to being, you know, more spiritual, to help you connect. Well, yeah, because you're off balance the entire time. You have no concept of what time it is. You have no concept of what's going on. You're talking about things that do become deeply emotional. And, you know, it was a good experience. Lucky for that. I mean, I felt like I had a really eye-opening, uplifting experience when I got home. It was like I was high for days. Like just the endorphin level was crazy. So I think that a lot of these cults, when people go to these things for the first time, they probably walk away with a very similar feeling to that. And yeah, if I kept going back to that all the time, it would quite possibly become addictive at some point. Whoever was in charge of that, whatever they told me that I needed to do to maintain that high and to maintain that feeling of connection and that feeling of being supported and being part of that community. Yeah, I mean, I might be able to be manipulated into doing things that I wouldn't otherwise.
Oh my God, Regina, you touched on all of the points that I was going to get to. All right, let me calm down first, because I'm totally geeking out. Okay, so listen. Okay.
Deep breath.
The key word being balance. That's kind of what I was alluding to. Like, yes, talking about cults and learning about cults, I believe everyone should learn about cults and why we are interested in them and why they fascinate us and what really makes them cults or not cults and all of this. At the same time, I also validate the fact that it is a very prejudiced thing to call anything a cult, because just by considering it to be a cult, that is literally us saying that it is not normal. And for those people, perhaps it is. For those people, that is obviously what they want to do with themselves. Let them do it. I do relate to, I shouldn't say relate. I should say I can imagine what it would be like to lose a family member or a loved one to something that you consider to be a cult, because it is so far outside of your whatever. And then the key to it all, because it's all lost in the soup, so to speak, depending on what perspective you're coming at it from. But the thing is if everybody, that whole high that you said that you had when you were there, that's all the positive things. That's all the reassuring things. That's all the validation to how you're feeling and all of the good, positive vibes. The thing is eventually they lead to negative vibes. And when you're getting it from an outside source, in this case scenario, we're talking about the Catholic Church, but if you bring it to cult members, they get it from their cult. They get that high. They get that euphoria. Everything's positive. Everything's validating them. Everything's listening to them, hearing them, seeing them. The thing is everyone needs to find that within themselves. When you start getting the negative, that's where everything goes bad.
I want to back up a little bit. So, Regina, did you say you felt euphoric when you came home?
Yes.
Okay, so
for days. I'm not talking about just, and I mean, you guys know me. Kind of bitchy most of the time, to be quite honest. But I was on this emotional high, and I'm not saying that anything untoward happened that shouldn't have, but I was definitely more receptive to what they were trying, the point they were trying to make, the symbology of the things that we were doing, and how, that related to my spiritual journey in that moment. But yeah, for days.
So do you think,
it was crazy.
So do you think, well, clearly they fed you, so it wasn't like you were, right? They fed you and they gave you drinks. They didn't withhold that. But do you think that it's because they just removed the everyday, the phone, the texting, the, constantly looking at the time and worrying about all that? So do you think that just those simple things, just by removing?
Well, that's part of it. Just the slight disorientation, because we're also always so connected to our technology these days. Being in silence is pretty profound. Honestly, being alone with your own thoughts is a lot. And then talking about very emotional things, and talking about scripture, and talking about sin and the weight of sin. Like, one of the exercises that we did, and this is a really simple thing, but it was very emotional for a lot of us. Like, you came to breakfast that morning and there was a rock, and it was sitting by your breakfast plate. It wasn't a heavy rock. It was just a rock. And you were supposed to pick this rock up and put it in your pocket and carry it with you all day long, everywhere you went, everything that you did. And then at the end of the day, we had confession. And then when you went into chapel to do your penance, you took the rock and you put it at the foot of the cross to basically symbolize Christ taking on your sins, taking your sins away from you. And it's not, like I said, it wasn't anything heavy, but you felt lighter and you got the symbology of it, and in that moment, in that environment, it was very profound. But I think that some of it, a lot of people, depending on how religious you are to begin with and how spiritual you feel, how open to being spiritual you feel beforehand. Some people will walk into that scenario and they will attribute it to Christ moving in their lives, or whatever deity is associated with this exercise, right? Working in their life. And that feeling they will attribute to God or Buddha or whoever. But then other people don't necessarily, I was never raised in a super religious or spiritual household. So for me, it was very confusing at first. And then it took me time to process it and realize that a lot of it was just a biochemical reaction to the stress of the situation that gave me a rush of dopamine and endorphins. But that was my nurse brain going to work.
Right.
Not saying I didn't get anything out of it, but just saying that, depending on where you are when you enter that environment is going to be what you take from it, if that makes any sense.
Total sense.
Yeah.
Can I just say that, this is the reason why round robins are so cool for other people to listen to, because just listening to you talk, you literally helped me process some of my, because I was raised Catholic, some of my Catholicism and some of the things that I differ with now. Now I'm very universally spiritual kind of thing, and I feel like it hinges off of our brain and emotions and the balance of everything. Oh my God, just listening to you help me process through some of that.
Well, I'm really happy for that, because I'm going to be honest, I walked away from that completely confused.
Yeah.
It took me a while to really, really process.
That was a retreat. So that was care. So they were caring for you. That was a retreat. And the Catholic Church does do a lot of good things. So I can't take that away. We can go on for days and everybody's seen the documentaries otherwise. However, that was a retreat that you guys went to and paid for, most likely. And that was self-care. And that was emotional validation. And that was different perspectives and giving you different ways to look at and frame bad things within yourself. So that was care. The thing is that we all need to do that kind of self-care. We need to spend time, intentional time, seeding through things and processing things. And I'm kind of glad that confused you and that you came to something else through it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But, like I said, I can understand, because listening to all these documentaries and listening to, even let's say Scientology, when they do these clearing sessions and you sit down with someone who's an examiner and you basically bare your soul. Well, of course you feel better. You feel it's therapy basically, except they then use that information to blackmail people. When you have a good therapy session, when you have a really good conversation with Tracy, when you're having, a hard time, or Tracy's having a hard time, and you guys have a really good conversation, you walk away and you feel better, and emotionally you're uplifted. And so having that with a group of people at the same time is really powerful, and it's easy to assign more meaning to it than there is.
Right. And you get a moment, because I think what we all do is we just harbor and hold it in. And then when you're around kind of like-minded people, or people who are welcoming, arms open, and it's like any time that you lift the weight off your chest and you just get it out. Like, oh man, that feels really good. But we don't do that very often. You know what I mean? We just keep it all in, hold it inside. And then, as we become adults, we lose that sense of community, because we're not in school anymore. We don't hang out with our group of friends anymore. You know what I mean? So then to come around, because it's energy. People have energy in their bodies. And then they're sharing that energy, and it's so, so welcoming and loving, and oh my God, it feels good. And then you keep coming back and keep coming back. And then if it's a bad place, if it's a bad intention, that's when you get lost. What do you have, Todd?
Well, there's a couple of things I want to touch on. I wanted to talk about Charles Manson, because he's like the most notorious American cult leader of all time. He's been the subject of books, film, television, and song. His sinister reflection of the dark side of the hippie ideal is arguably the most well-known cult leader in the world. Instead of peace and love, Manson promoted helter-skelter, hoping to instigate a race war, which he would be the hero, the ultimate leader. And all of this could have been played off as LSD delusion, were it not for the Manson family's real-world connection with the Tate LaBianca murders. In 1969, by Manson's orders, members of his family killed actress Sharon Tate and 4 others. The murders shocked the nation, and Manson eventually ended up behind bars serving a life sentence, and then eventually dying in November of 2017 of natural causes. Now, I remember as a child, just knowing this story about this man chilled me to the bone. And it just scared the hell out of me how this one person could change the minds and the thoughts and how people reacted to reflect the thoughts of himself. It was just a very creepy and eerie feeling that I had about learning about this guy. And I remember I was young, I think maybe middle school, when I first learned about him.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. And
we're just kind of mumbling to ourselves over here while Todd was talking, because she said, oh my God, I don't remember Manson. I remember, what did you say?
The Branch Davidian.
The Branch Davidian guys. And she was like, we're from different times. And I was like, no, you guys are like the same age. And I was like, first off. Second off.
No, they're not. Todd's 51.
52.
Oh my God, he's 52. He's so old.
He just relishes those 5 years like nobody's business. But anyway,
but
back to what Todd was talking about. The fact that Todd, our generation, kind of knows so much about Manson, and that taught us the outlandishness of how some people think and how crazy it is, and it taught us to be more self-aware of who we are, where we come from, and to be good stewards of the human race, that those are bad things to do. And that's why we started labeling them cults and making them evil and demonizing them and all of that. But the thing is that actually happened when? In the 60s, right, Todd?
Right, yep.
Well,
that predates all of us.
Yeah, and the other thing was, I don't know if you guys...
How about him? I mean, I know about him now because I'm an adult and I've seen stuff about it. But I never remember seeing that on and being scared of Marilyn Manson. Because you were a sheltered young child. But my mom
You were
put
helter
the news
sheltered
on every night. I watched news every night. Yeah, and you wouldn't have heard about him on the news. Well, I'm traumatized 20 years old. Talked about it. If a news article came out about him, or some documentary came out about him, you don't think they'd do a little blurb up on it? No.
Yes, Barbara Walters did shows like The Manson Family 10 years later, 15 years later.
Baba
That
Wawas.
was on all the time. Well, then you didn't pay attention.
So I'm going to pick your brain a little bit because Charles Manson was a little off, right? As a kid, he was deviant, this, that, and the other thing. But then, like, he was in and out of jail a lot. And I remember hearing about a book that he read, and it had a lot to do with, I don't really want to say mind control, but it was how to get in and persuade people. Regina, I'm thinking you probably, do you know what I'm talking about? There was a specific book he read.
And I'm trying to remember, it's kind of dancing around in the back of my head, but I can't remember exactly which book. But Manson, bear in mind, if you've watched any documentaries on him, and of course I have because I'm a nerd, David Koresh, multiple, Jim Jones, from Jonestown, nobody ever showed up on day one at any of their events and they said, okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to move out to the jungle in Guyana and then we're all going to drink poison Kool-Aid. Everybody would be like, up yours, what the hell, you're crazy. That's not how it happens. It starts out like the experience that I had, which, like I said, very, very fucking positive experience. I came away with that with a deeper understanding of myself and a deeper understanding of my spirituality. However, they start there and you think that you're in this supportive, loving environment. And then as the leader gains more control, like there have been a lot of experiments done on these kinds of things where, you set up a group of subjects and some of them are set up as leaders and others are set up as, like the Stanford prison experiment, some were guards and some were prisoners, things like that. Once you set up that hierarchy and the people who are in the hierarchy, the part of it that is in control, once they realize how much control they have, it's corrupting. That line about power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely is absolutely true. So the more power they have, the more they exercise, and the more people start to submit to their will, the worse they get. It never starts out like, oh, hey, we're going to go down the road here and we're going to murder a pregnant woman and a bunch of her guests in this house down the street. That's not how they start out. Nobody would stick around for that.
Right. And he used LSD to his advantage,
yep.
Right? Because he would dose everybody up. He would dose a little bit, like microdosing, so he stayed in control, and he would sit there and preach. So they're all tripping out of their brains, looking up at this guy, and then he's going on. And the more, I guess I could imagine, like the more you see that, oh my gosh, they're totally into me, it's working, then the maniacalness happens, I guess. You know what I mean? But his big power of control, I think, was the drugs, and all of the people in the Manson family were very young. They were all runaways. They had no place to go. They had no sense of family. They became the Manson family. Each and every one of those girls had to sleep with them as well.
Yeah, that kind of ties back to our other conversations where we started talking about mental illness. Because unfortunately, when same begets same, and they all have a touch of mental illness because of their nurture environment of their childhoods and whatnot, and then their formative years, which is their teenage years, where they were all together in their teens, like late teens, and doing hallucinogenics with each other.
Yeah.
Like that causes some mental disturbances.
Right, right. So what about you, Nina? What do you have?
Nina says that cults are cool. What? Wait.
Say what?
Cults are cool until the philosophies or the leaderships or
the actions of the cult cause harm. Start to abuse. Right? Because let me put it into perspective. And I think this kind of ties in. Maybe I think I was following my wife here when she was talking about the spectrum, is that, I do karaoke. That's my pastime, favorite thing. And I have about 15 to 20 interchangeable people that we call a wolf pack. Okay. We've been doing karaoke together for 3 years, and we're hard up for karaoke. And we all share this passion. We all have each other's backs. We do Christmas parties together. We get together for each other's birthdays, or if someone's mom has passed away. And so some people might consider that a cult. But all we're bringing is sweet, sweet music, okay? We're not piping you into a back room where we sex traffic you later,
It's a little bit cultish.
So, but it is. I mean, there are some rules. There are rules to karaoke, there's etiquette that, just like any other sport.
Yeah, any other
kind of activity.
I'm
a fan of it.
I'm interested in the
rules.
rules.
I love my people, and I will stick up for them hands down. But I also call them out, and you're not in a cult when the person you call out goes, you know what, that's my bad. You're right. I was a total asshole. And then you make up and everything is fine. Now, if that was a cult situation, no. You're in trouble, and now you're getting locked in the hole, and you don't get food for 5 days. You know what I'm saying? That's how you'll know you'll be in a cult. Otherwise, I think it's just a fun, enthusiastic thing.
So
you're talking about cults? No, I'm talking about just cults in general. I think any person that has a general hobby or interest, that's the spectrum of it. I think cult can have a positive and negative connotation to it. Okay, so it just depends on what it is that you're applying it to. And I think that we can agree that if you're crossing a line and what you're asking your people to do is harming themselves or harming others, then we obviously know that would be not a cult we'd want to be a part of. That's something that we should shut down. You know what I'm saying? But then you have a lot of Taylor Swift people, and they call these people a cult, and they would do anything
Swifties.
for this person that they've never met before.
Yeah, but that's not the kind of cults that we're talking about. That's other side of fanaticalism.
Right.
Okay.
But any kind of fanaticism to any degree, I think, could be harmful. I think you just have to look at the context.
So fanaticism is a slippery slope.
I think so.
All right.
So I am curious about something, Nina. What are the karaoke cult rules?
The first rule is we don't talk about the cult.
That if you are in the same room with somebody and you know that they have a signature song, that is the song that they're known for. That when you get up to go sing that song, people go, wait till you hear this, right? If you take that person's song without asking them, that's a no-no. That's a big, big no-no. And if you don't acknowledge that that's their song and you took it, that's a huge, huge no-no. You just don't do it.
So what
you
happens?
wait until the person's not there, and then you try it out. But you don't sing somebody else's song in their presence.
Because otherwise you're going to get your ass beat down.
You're gonna get
the karaoke KO.
Karaoke KO.
She's not saying that karaoke is a cult, so it's not cult rules. It's karaoke etiquette.
Right. But so I think what we're talking about here, though, is a difference between a cult and culture. So that is the karaoke culture. There is etiquette associated with that. Now, I'm serious. So listen to this, because as you're talking, I had this thought, and I Googled cult versus culture, and it says, let's explore the fundamental differences between these opposing worldviews. A cult is about fear. Culture is about trust. Leaders who assert dominance and command their people through fear often themselves come from a space of deep-seated fear, the fear of losing control, material, wealth, and relevance. So there is a difference. So the positive experiences, perhaps similar to the ones that I had, would be more of a culture, and the negative ones where there is a charismatic leader and everyone else is an acolyte doing their bidding and submitting to their will is a cult.
Thank you for that, because that's important. I think the line between the two is very important. Do you have something to say, hon?
Yes. So I was looking up the definition of cult. There's a few examples here. A system of a religious veneration and devotion directed toward a particular figure or object. A relatively small group of people having religious beliefs or practices regarded by others as strange or sinister. And a misplaced or excessive admiration for a particular person or thing. And I'm going to try and say this without breaking into song because I'm a huge 80s music fan. A cult of personality surrounding the leaders. This definition, though, I think is very, very stale because I think you could be a cult of one or millions. Because the way I see it, a cult is being under the influence of a person that you're in admiration of that is influencing your thoughts or beliefs to reflect their own. And this could happen on a small level or an extremely large level, as we've seen throughout history.
Right. And how about the relationship cult? I'm just making that up. But how many people do you know of that are in a relationship
Right.
where they pull them away from everyone, pull them away from their family, they lose their family, they lose their friends. It's all about me, whoever that is in the relationship that's controlling them.
Exactly. I mean, it's a huge spectrum. Could be very small, could be very large.
Thank you, Todd. That's my stance. Is it's a spectrum.
Mm-hmm. And Todd, that song is now stuck in my head.
I know. I've been
Thank
wanting
you
to sing
very
it all
much.
day.
Nina, you're up. I need you to sing this song so we can.
Oh, so we can go back to the karaoke thing, Nina. Yes.
Nina has to break it out.
I love karaoke too, and I
do
will
too.
I will admit that I was into karaoke for a long time, and I think I probably had the liquid courage that made me do it. But my favorite, I hit on a lot of popular songs at the time, but I always loved to do The Doors, and I was very theatrical up on stage.
I cannot possibly imagine.
I don't think I can imagine that either. I've never seen Todd do karaoke.
And a half hour after that, I'd be in a bar fight.
It's a bet. Let's do it.
I totally can see Todd being a big old ham up there on stage with the microphone. I totally see it.
Yeah.
I think I feel a karaoke night coming on.
Yeah, we need to get together.
We'll do karaoke here
Wouldn't that be fun?
in the fall.
Oh my God.
Neighbors are going to call the cops.
Yeah, they will.
They will. It doesn't take much.
We have some of the best. That was a pretty good conversation about cults. I mean, right? I think some of the biggest takeaways from that are there are always people who have their eye out for anyone they want to pull into their cult. They're looking for a weakness, someone who is young and has a difficult family life, or maybe it's a woman who gets a divorce or was in a relationship for a long time, and you kind of lose yourself a little bit, are out there to manipulate you, are looking for the weaknesses, and they swoop in the minute they see them. And it's easy for people to get pulled in, just like Regina's point of, hey, it feels good. Oh my gosh, what a wonderful experience. I want more and more and more, and I'm lonely.
Yep. Yeah, and there's like two really key factors. It's charisma and persuasion.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the need that we have to feel accepted as part of a group is a big one. Feeling like you found your group of people and that, these people are supportive of you and they just want to make you better and they want you to do better. And then, at some point you start questioning, is this really the right thing? I mean, like the NXIVM cult, when you talk about these women that volunteered to join this women's group where they had a slave master relationship with someone who they literally had to text and ask if it was okay for them to eat, how many calories they could eat. These women are losing extreme amounts of weight. They're being bullied into having sex with the cult leader, or the Branch Davidians where David Koresh declares that God's told him that basically every woman in the cult should be his bride, the bride of Christ, and that he's the only one that can have children. Again, those things don't happen immediately. They happen over a period of time. And just because at that point, everyone is so ingrained and they're so bought into the idea that either this person is God or that they're speaking for God or whatever, that they're willing to compromise their beliefs. Men are willing to give up their wives. Women are willing to let their daughters, their underage daughters, sleep with these men. It still boggles my mind because I would like to think that at some point I'd be like, whoa, hold the phone and put the brakes on it. That I'd be the person they'd be interviewing after the whole fire in Waco and going, dude said that he was supposed to marry my daughter. And I was like, yeah, up yours, I'm out of here. But I don't know what I would do in that situation because it's really extreme, right? And it takes grooming to get there.
I don't think I could ever be in a cult. I really don't think I could because, I've had some lows and I've been like in a place where I'm like, yeah, it'd be great to belong to a group or this or that, but I don't know. It's like I have a hard time looking at someone and you're telling me that you're speaking the words of God and you're going to dictate this and that to me. Like I would almost just feel like it would be comical. Like, really? God's not speaking through you, dude.
Yeah, and that totally tracks. Not to get too sappy, bestie, but that's the reason why you're a beautiful human being, is because you're more self-aware and you find peace and joy within yourself first and foremost before you go looking for it in others. That is the slippery slope of people that get caught up in cults and people that are possible fodder for cults or members for cults because they're looking outside of themselves for themselves.
They're looking for affirmation and value externally.
And that's what's got to come from within. And I, because my brain's always going a mile a minute with all this craziness, I have a picture of a spectrum and the dials read out culture. Cult being on the dark side in the first half of that, 0 to 50. And on the light side being culture. Ture, which is actually a Norwegian word, like tour. That's how I remember it.
Skål.
Like a tour is to go on tour. Ture in Norwegian language actually means to keep on, carry on. That spectrum is culture, first half of it being cults. My feelings that I want to share is find joy and happiness and validation and acceptance within yourself, and you won't get caught up all of a sudden finding yourself in a slippery slope to cult land.
Agreed. Know who you are. Hold a small group of friends close to your heart, like you ladies and us. It's never a good thing if someone's pulling you away from the people that love you.
Well, it's not sort of like it is. It's an abusive relationship. They isolate and alienate you from your support system so they become your only means of support, emotional or financial, whatever the case may be. And then the next thing you know, you're in crisis and you look up and you have no support. You're out there on the ledge all by yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happens to a lot of people that eventually do become disillusioned with the cult and, try to leave or they're disillusioned, but they don't leave because they just don't know where to go from there because now they've alienated their support system. So it's really hard to call up mom and dad, call up your brother, call up your bestie and say, I know that I've blown you off for like the last 10 years and you've pleaded with me because you said this wasn't healthy for me. But yeah, I know I haven't talked to you, but I really need you now.
Right.
A lot of people have a hard time with that.
Yeah. But something that people should always remember is that their family or your best friend, that love never fades. You know what I mean? So that's one of the things that really, I'm sure it must be horribly frightening for someone who's allowed themselves to be in either a cult with a group or in a cult of one.
Agreed.
The people who love you will always love you.
It's hard to remember that.
Yeah.
It really is.
Well, it's a lot of constant, I've never been in a relationship like that, but I can only imagine the talk that happens between those two people in their own four walls. Nobody loves you like I do. Nobody's going to be here for you like I am. I'm the only one who loves you. and they buy that shit, which drives me nuts. Drives me nuts.
Right, but they don't start out like that on the first date is the problem.
Right, it's years.
That happens gradually, and it, erodes, but it starts out with just a little groove. It's never you show up for the first date and they lock the door and go, okay, you're never leaving. You can't talk to anybody. Forget your family. It's all about me. That's not how it happens.
Yeah, months, years of grooming.
Can I just point out how our conversations go from macro to micro so seamlessly? You guys went from major cults around the world to a cult of one. When you're in an abusive relationship, I love it. Yeah, I love how we go all around the world in 60 seconds.
Round robin, baby.
One, I think we can just call that a narcissist.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah,
Oh,
a cult of one.
no.
I mean, think about it. The people that are generally leaders of cults are narcissists, 100%.
Agreed. They love themselves way too
So,
much.
if you're a cult of one, that means you're obsessed with yourself. And who is obsessed with themselves? Narcissists.
True.
I just realized that I'm a cult leader with my dog Buddy because I will tackle him to the ground and I will tell him, Daddy loves you. Nobody loves you more than me. I do that with Buddy.
Buys it.
I don't. I kind of do it with the other dogs, but more so with Buddy, and he gets it.
You're mine
He's
forever.
Yeah, he's my boy. I don't even have to give commands to him. I just snap my fingers and he does it.
He's a snapper. That's how it
Todd
rolls.
was the first one to say, am I a cult leader?
I know. I was thinking the same thing. Here we go, Christine. We're on to something now, right?
Christine's like, am I a schizophrenia?
I'm a cult
And
leader.
Todd's like, am I a cult leader?
I am the cult of Todd and Buddy.
Because I am not in his cult. I love you to death, babe, but
I know I can't control you.
nobody's controlling me. Nah. Well, I hope we've enlightened some people. It's a good conversation, and it's something that I hope people remember to, we all have our low spots. Just remember, you're something amazing. So does anybody have anything else they want to say for our topic tonight before we wrap it up?
No, I love you guys, and I love these combos, and I love that we have people listening to them, and I hope that it's entertaining, and maybe it makes you think.
Agreed. I love you guys, too. Everybody love yourself. Well, guess what, guys? This is our last round robin for season 2. Did that not go super fast?
That did. How many have we done?
What is this? This is episode 21. I don't, you want to know exactly how many round robins?
I'm sorry.
That's an odd number.
It's either 10 or 11.
It's 10 or 11. I'm going to say 10
Yeah.
or 11. You decide.
Every other one.
Every other
How many
one.
that is.
Yeah. Next week's
Yeah. Yeah, we're coming up on season 3 next week.
next week, season 3. It's bananas.
Yeah.
It's a slippery slope.
It's a slippery slope.
It's a slippery. That's Christine's word. Words.
And I'm the inspiration.
That we're about to go dirty, so
Lord have mercy. Why do I feel like, well, actually, I don't feel like I am. I'm odd man out because my wife's not on this call.
yeah, what the hell?
So everybody can pick on their partner but me.
Feel bad about that sometimes. I'm sorry.
You know
Regina.
what? You kind of have an advantage, actually.
Lori knows us, and she's just looking over at me going, yeah, I'm good. Thanks.
Yeah, she's like, I'm totes cool over here. You're some weird bitches. All right, everybody, well, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for coming back every week. Please keep coming back. It's fun. It's an adventure. And we're going to keep having a great time. So thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your week. And we will see you next Monday for season 3 of Malice in the Mitten. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Rock on.
Bye.